Life has a funny way of weaving stories that seem almost too perfect to be true. In a cozy corner of Seattle, where the rain taps gently against windows and the smell of coffee drifts through the air, lived a young woman who had learned to see the world from a different perspective, quite literally. Anna was 32, with bright eyes that crinkled when she smiled and a laptop that rarely left her side. 5 years ago, her life had taken an unexpected turn when a rainy evening and a distracted driver changed everything. The accident left her wheelchair-bound, but it couldn't touch her spirit or her imagination. If anything, it had given her stories more depth, more heart. Her small apartment overlooked a busy street lined with cherry trees. She'd chosen it carefully, not too fancy, not too simple, just perfect for someone who spent most days crafting mysterious worlds for her readers. The building had an elevator that worked most days, and wide doorways that made it easy for her to move around. Her neighbors knew her as the quiet writer who always had a kind word to share and treats for their dogs when they passed by. Her day usually started with the soft buzz of her coffee maker, a gift from her mom who worried about her living alone. Anna had arranged her kitchen thoughtfully, everything within reach, each cabinet carefully organized. She'd learned to adapt, to find creative solutions for everyday challenges. Her morning routine had become a well-choreographed dance between her wheelchair and her determination. The wall beside her desk displayed the covers of her mystery novels, 3 successful books that had earned her a loyal following. Her latest story was about a detective who solved crimes using unconventional methods, much like how Anna had learned to navigate life differently. Her readers loved how she wove subtle details about accessibility and inclusion into her stories without making them feel preachy. Physical therapy sessions filled her Tuesday and Thursday mornings. Her therapist, a warm-hearted woman with gray-streaked hair, had become more friend than medical professional. They'd share laughs between exercises, trading stories about their weeks. These sessions were more than just about maintaining strength. They were proof that challenges could become stepping stones. When she wasn't writing or at therapy, Anna connected with her readers through social media. She'd host live reading sessions from her living room, her bookshelf creating the perfect backdrop. Her followers appreciated her honesty about both good days and tough ones. She never sugarcoated the challenges of being disabled, but she also showed how life could be rich and full of purpose. Her literary agent, who'd stuck by her side since her first manuscript, would video call every Friday. They'd discuss plot twists and character arcs, but also share jokes and talk about life. These calls often left Anna feeling energized, ready to pour more of herself into her stories. Sometimes, loneliness would creep in during quiet evenings when the city lights began to twinkle outside her window. Writing was solitary work, and while she loved it, she couldn't help wondering if life had more in store for her. She'd roll her chair onto her small balcony, breathe in the city air, and remind herself that every good story has unexpected turns. What she didn't know was that fate was about to introduce a new character into her story, one that would change not just her life, but the lives of countless others. But that's how the best stories often work, don't they? They surprise us when we least expect it, turning ordinary moments into extraordinary beginnings. Sometimes the most life-changing moments happen on the most ordinary days. For Anna, it was a drizzly Tuesday afternoon at the Corner Cafe, her favorite coffee spot in downtown Seattle. The cafe had always been welcoming, with its accessible entrance and friendly staff who knew her usual order, a vanilla latte with an extra shot of espresso. That particular afternoon, the rain had picked up, turning the city into a blur of gray and silver. Anna had just finished a productive writing session and was ready to head home when she noticed something wasn't right. The usually reliable entrance ramp had developed a loose board, and her wheelchair's wheel had gotten caught in the gap. She tried maneuvering back and forth, but the wheel wouldn't budge. A few passers-by hurried past, heads down against the rain, umbrellas creating a sea of bobbing shades. Anna wasn't one to ask for help easily. Years of independence had taught her to solve most problems on her own. But this situation was different. That's when she heard a gentle voice. Would you like some assistance? Looking up, she saw a tall man in a simple gray coat, holding an umbrella over her to shield her from the rain. There was something kind about his eyes, something genuine that made her feel at ease despite the awkward situation. The man introduced himself as Ray, and together they worked out how to safely free her wheelchair. He didn't make a fuss, didn't treat her like she was helpless, just offered practical help with respect and understanding. It wasn't until they'd solved the problem that Anna noticed his expensive watch and well-tailored clothes beneath the modest coat. "Thank you," she said, adjusting her position. "Most people just walk by. Most people miss out on the chance to meet interesting strangers," he replied with a warm smile. "Are you okay to get home?" That's when the cafe owner rushed out, apologizing profusely about the ramp. During the conversation, Anna learned that her helpful stranger wasn't just any businessman. He was Ray Chen, the founder of Future Tech Solutions, a company known for innovative technology development. What caught her attention wasn't his success or wealth, but how he immediately engaged the cafe owner in a discussion about proper accessibility maintenance. He wasn't showing off or trying to throw his influence around. He genuinely seemed to care about preventing similar incidents in the future. Before they parted ways, Ray mentioned he'd seen some of her books displayed in airport bookstores. The way his eyes lit up when talking about her latest mystery novel told her he wasn't just being polite. He'd actually read it. They shared a laugh about her plot twists, standing there in the rain as if they were old friends catching up. That evening, as Anna rolled into her apartment, something felt different. The encounter had left her thinking about connections, how some people can walk into your life so unexpectedly and leave such a strong impression. She found herself looking up Future Tech Solutions, curious about their work. To her surprise, the company had recently started developing adaptive technology, though their efforts weren't widely publicized. It seemed Ray preferred letting the work speak for itself rather than using it for publicity. This discovery made their chance meeting feel even more meaningful. As she settled in for the night, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a random encounter. Her writer's instinct told her there was more to this story. Little did she know, across the city, Ray was sitting in his office, one of her books open on his desk, his mind working on ideas that would soon bridge their two worlds in ways neither of them could imagine. The rain continued to fall outside, but somehow the city felt a little less lonely, a little more full of possibility. Sometimes the universe has plans we can't see coming, and sometimes those plans start with a broken ramp and a kind stranger with an umbrella. Success and loneliness often walk hand in hand, though few would expect to find them together in a penthouse overlooking Seattle's glittering skyline. Ray sat in his home office, surrounded by awards and achievements, yet feeling strangely empty as he flipped through Anna's latest novel. The book had caught his eye at the airport bookstore, the day after their chance meeting. He bought it on impulse, curious about the writer he'd met in the rain. Now, 3 hours past midnight, he couldn't put it down. Her words painted pictures of a world where obstacles became opportunities, where characters faced their challenges with grace and determination. In the quiet hours of the night, Ray found himself reflecting on his own journey. He built Future Tech Solutions from the ground up, turning it into a billion-dollar company. Yet something was missing. The business magazines called him a visionary, but lately, he'd been questioning what kind of vision he truly had. Was success really just about profit margins and stock prices? His thoughts kept drifting back to that rainy afternoon and the broken ramp. It wasn't just about helping someone in need. It was about seeing the world through different eyes. He opened his laptop and began researching accessibility issues, adaptive technologies, and the daily challenges faced by people with disabilities. The more he learned, the more he realized how much technology could do to bridge these gaps. Meanwhile, across the city, Anna was deep into her own research. Future Tech Solutions had caught her attention, but not for its impressive profit reports or cutting-edge smartphones. Hidden in their recent press releases were small mentions of adaptive technology projects, attempts to make the digital world more accessible for everyone. She'd spent the evening watching Ray's interviews online, Unlike many tech CEOs, he spoke with genuine passion about using technology to solve real human problems. There was no rehearsed corporate speak, no flashy presentations, just honest conversations about making life better for people. The next morning, Anna received an unexpected email from her literary agent. A technology magazine wanted to interview her about writing with a disability in the digital age. As she read through the details, her heart skipped a beat. The magazine was owned by Future Tech Solutions. That same morning, Ray sat in his office, staring at a presentation about their latest adaptive technology project. The numbers looked good, but something was missing. They had the technology, but they needed someone who understood the real-world challenges, someone who could help them create solutions that truly mattered. His assistant knocked on the door, bringing in the morning's business newspapers. On the front page was a feature about accessible technology. Ray's eyes were drawn to a quote from a disability rights advocate. Technology shouldn't just be about convenience. It should be about independence. The words struck a chord. He thought about Anna's books, how she wove themes of independence and resilience into her mysteries without ever making them feel forced. He thought about the broken ramp at the cafe, about all the other invisible barriers that people faced every day. Opening his laptop again, Ray began drafting an email. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as he considered what to write. How do you reach out to someone you've only met once, someone whose words have somehow shifted your entire perspective? As the sun rose higher over Seattle, two people in different parts of the city were thinking about change, about how random encounters can spark new beginnings, about how technology and storytelling might come together to create something meaningful. Neither of them knew it yet, but their parallel lives were about to converge in ways that would reshape not just their own futures, but the lives of countless others. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest connections, with a rainy day, a broken ramp, and two people willing to see the world differently. The morning sunshine streamed through Anna's apartment windows as she stared at her computer screen, reading the email for the third time. The technology magazine's interview request had led to something unexpected, an invitation to consult on Future Tech Solutions' adaptive technology project. Her hands trembled slightly as she considered the possibilities. "We value your unique perspective," the email read. It was signed by Ray himself, not his assistant or the PR team. He mentioned their chance meeting at the cafe, but focused mainly on her writing and her public advocacy for accessibility. The sincerity in his words jumped off the screen, making this feel less like a business proposal and more like a genuine attempt to create meaningful change. That afternoon, their first virtual meeting was scheduled. Anna spent an hour choosing the perfect spot in her apartment for the video call, finally settling on her writing corner where her published books lined the shelves behind her. As the meeting time approached, she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness she hadn't experienced since publishing her first novel. The video call connected, and there was Ray, sitting in what looked like a home office rather than a corporate boardroom. He wore a simple blue sweater instead of a business suit, and behind him was a wall of books that rivaled her own collection. This wasn't the polished CEO from magazine covers. This was the same thoughtful person who had helped her in the rain. "I hope you don't mind a more casual setting," he said with a warm smile. "I find people think more creatively when they're comfortable." What was supposed to be a 30-minute introduction turned into a 2-hour conversation. They talked about everything from the challenges of current adaptive technologies to the power of storytelling and creating empathy. Anna shared her daily experiences, the small frustrations and victories that most people never thought about. Ray listened intently, taking notes, asking questions that showed he truly wanted to understand. "The problem with most adaptive technology," Anna explained, gesturing to various devices around her apartment, "is that it's designed by people who've never needed it. They focus on the technical solution without understanding the human experience." Ray nodded, scribbling something in his notebook. "That's exactly why we need you. We have the technical knowledge, but we're missing the human perspective. We need someone who can bridge that gap." As they discussed the project details, Anna felt her initial nervousness fade away. This wasn't about charity or corporate image. Ray genuinely wanted to create technology that would make a difference. He shared rough designs for smart home systems, asking for her honest feedback, even when that feedback meant completely rethinking their approach. What if, Anna suggested, her writer's imagination kicking in? We started by documenting a day in the life of someone with different abilities. Not just the big challenges, but all the small moments that could be made easier with the right technology. Ray's eyes lit up. That's brilliant. We've been focusing on big solutions, but maybe the real impact lies in solving the small, everyday challenges that add up. As the meeting drew to a close, they had already planned a series of follow-up sessions. Ray wanted Anna to meet his development team, and she had a list of other people from the disability community who could offer valuable insights. "Before you go," Ray said, holding up her latest novel, "I have to ask, did the detective's sister really know about the missing painting all along?" Anna laughed, surprised and touched that he'd actually read her book. "That's for me to know, and you to keep guessing," she teased, feeling a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with business opportunities. After the call ended, Anna sat quietly for a moment, letting everything sink in. Through her window, she could see the Seattle skyline, the same view she'd looked at countless times while writing her novels. But today it looked different somehow, full of new possibilities and unexpected chapters waiting to be written. Little did she know, across the city, Ray was already reshaping his company's priorities, inspired by a conversation that had started with a broken ramp and was blooming into something neither of them could have predicted. Over the next few weeks, the lines between professional collaboration and genuine friendship began to blur. Anna found herself looking forward to their project meetings, not just for the work they were doing, but for the easy conversation and shared understanding that had developed between them. One particularly memorable morning, Ray arrived at Anna's apartment with his development team for their first in-person workshop. He'd insisted on coming to her space rather than having her travel to their offices, understanding that familiar surroundings would make for better brainstorming. The gesture wasn't lost on Anna. It was exactly the kind of thoughtful consideration that had drawn her to the project. The team spread out in her living room, laptops open, prototype devices scattered across her coffee table. Anna watched as Ray guided the discussion, always making sure to bring the conversation back to the human element whenever his engineers got too caught up in technical specifications. "Show me how you make your morning coffee," Ray had asked, catching Anna off guard with such a simple request. As she demonstrated her daily routine, the team noticed how she had to stretch uncomfortably to reach certain items, how some tasks required multiple steps that could be simplified. "See," Ray pointed out to his team, "we're not just creating technology. We're giving people back their time, their independence, their dignity in everyday moments." During their lunch break, while the team was ordering food, Ray wandered over to Anna's bookshelf. He picked up a framed photo of her at a book signing before her accident. Without a word, she rolled over and showed him a more recent photo from her latest book launch. Smaller crowd, different setup, but her smile was brighter, more genuine. "Life has a way of changing our stories," she said softly, "but sometimes the new chapters are better than the ones we planned." Ray sat down at her eye level, something she noticed he always did naturally, without making it obvious. "You know, when I started Future Tech, I thought success meant bigger profits, fancier offices, more employees. But sitting here, seeing how our work could actually change lives, this feels like what success should really be about." Their conversation was interrupted by a notification on Anna's phone. Someone had posted a critical comment on her social media, questioning her involvement with a big corporation. "Selling out," they called it. Ray noticed her expression change as she read it. "Don't let it bother you," he said, but Anna shook her head. "It's not that simple. The disability community has been let down by big promises before. They have every right to be skeptical." Instead of getting defensive, Ray listened as Anna explained the history of failed promises and corporate publicity stunts that had left many in the disability community distrustful. By the time the team returned with lunch, they had sketched out a new plan, one that would involve community feedback at every stage of development. Later that afternoon, as the team was packing up their equipment, one of the younger engineers showed Anna a rough prototype of a smart home system they'd been discussing. Her eyes welled up when she realized they'd already incorporated several of her suggestions from previous meetings. "This is why we need you," Ray said quietly, noticing her emotion. "You're not just consulting on a project. You're helping us understand what really matters." As the team filed out, Ray lingered behind. He looked around her apartment, at the post-it notes filled with story ideas, the adaptive devices she'd jerry-rigged to make life easier, the wall of books she'd written despite every obstacle. "You know," he said, picking up one of her novels, "I think I finally figured out why your detective's sister knew about the painting." Anna raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really?" She saw the whole picture when everyone else was just looking at the frame. The metaphor wasn't lost on either of them. As Ray left that evening, both felt a shift in their relationship, a deeper understanding that went beyond business meetings and project goals. They were two people who had learned to see the world differently, and together, they were starting to paint a new picture of what was possible. Not every story runs smoothly, and even the most promising partnerships face their share of storms. The morning started with Anna scrolling through her social media feed, her heart sinking as she read comment after comment questioning her integrity. A well-known disability rights blogger had written a scathing post about her collaboration with Future Tech Solutions. "They're using you as a feel-good story," one comment read. "Big companies don't care about us. They care about their image." The words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they echoed the doubts that sometimes crept into her own mind during sleepless nights. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ray. "Turn on the business news." She did, and her stomach tightened. The headlines were all about Future Tech Solutions stock taking the hit after rumors spread about the company wasting resources on accessibility projects instead of focusing on mainstream products. The morning's virtual board meeting was tense. Anna watched from her screen as Ray faced questioning from stern-faced executives in expensive suits. "The Adaptive Technology Division is consuming significant resources," one board member said, his voice sharp. "The return on investments simply isn't there." Ray stood his ground, his usually calm demeanor charged with passionate conviction. "If we measure return on investment purely in dollars, we're missing the point. This project isn't just about profit. It's about making technology truly accessible to everyone." Anna felt her chest tighten as another board member interrupted. "We're not running a charity. We're running a business." The words hung heavy in the air. That afternoon, Anna wheeled herself to the local park, needing fresh air to clear her head. The autumn leaves were falling, creating a carpet of red and gold. A young mother struggled with a stroller on a curb, and Anna remembered why this all mattered so much. It wasn't just about fancy technology. It was about making life a little easier for everyone who faced daily challenges. Her phone rang. It was Ray, sounding tired but determined. "The board meeting was rough," he admitted. "But you know what? Their resistance just proves how much we need to do this." "Maybe they're right," Anna said softly. "Maybe I'm not the right person for this. I'm a writer, not a tech expert." "Stop right there." Ray's voice grew firm. "You're exactly what this project needs. You know why? Because you understand that technology without humanity is just expensive junk. We're not just building gadgets. We're building bridges." They talked for over an hour, sharing their fears and frustrations, but also their hopes. Ray told her about his sister, who taught special education before passing away years ago. "She always said the world wasn't built for everyone, but it should be. I guess I'm finally listening to her." That evening, Anna opened her laptop and began to write. Not her usual mystery novel, but a series of stories. Real stories about real people whose lives could be transformed by accessible technology. Stories about elderly grandparents who could stay independent longer, children with disabilities who could attend school more easily, workers who could pursue their dreams with the right tools. She sent the document to Ray near midnight, not expecting him to read it until morning. His response came within minutes. "This is it. This is how we make them understand." Together, they began planning a different kind of presentation for the next board meeting. Not just charts and projections, but real stories, real faces, real lives that could be changed. Ray's team worked through the night, combining Anna's narratives with their technical demonstrations. As Anna finally drifted off to sleep, her phone lit up with one last message from Ray. "Thank you for reminding me why we started this journey. Sometimes the biggest challenges bring out the best in us." She smiled, realizing that what had started as a professional partnership had grown into something far more meaningful, a shared mission to prove that the best investments aren't measured in dollars, but in the lives they touch. The day of the second board meeting arrived with a mix of nervous energy and quiet determination. Anna sat in her apartment, dressed in her favorite blue blazer, waiting for the video call to begin. Her heart was racing, but her voice was steady as she shared screen with the board members. Instead of dry statistics, she began with a video diary. It showed a week in her life, the small victories and daily frustrations, the moments where technology could bridge the gaps. The boardroom fell silent as they watched her navigate her world with grace and determination, but also with clear challenges that their technology could solve. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice clear and confident, "what you're seeing isn't just my story. It's the story of millions of people who adapt to a world that wasn't built for them. Now, imagine if we could change that world." Ray took over, showing their latest prototype, a smart home system that responded to various needs. But this wasn't just any demonstration. They tested it in real homes, with real families. The screen filled with faces of people whose lives had been touched by their technology. An elderly man could now control his entire home environment without leaving his bed. A young student with limited mobility could attend classes remotely with a system that gave her real presence in the classroom. A busy professional with visual impairment could navigate his workday with newfound independence. The numbers followed the stories. Market research showing an untapped customer base, letters of intent from healthcare providers, interest from international markets. Ray's team had done their homework, proving that doing good could also mean good business. One board member leaned forward, his previous skepticism softening. "How soon can we scale this?" The atmosphere in the room shifted. Questions changed from "why should we?" to "how can we do this faster?" Anna watched as Ray handled each query with passionate expertise, his eyes lighting up as he outlined their expansion plans. After the meeting, Ray called Anna with excitement in his voice. "They didn't just approve the project. They tripled our budget. They want to make this our major initiative for the next year." Anna laughed, tears of joy streaming down her face. "I can't believe we did it." "No," Ray corrected gently, "you did it. Your stories made them see the human side of technology. That's something I could never do alone." Later that evening, as celebrations wound down, Anna sat on her balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Her phone was flooded with messages from the disability community. Word had spread about Future Tech's commitment to accessible technology, and the tide of opinion was turning. The same blogger who had criticized her now wanted to interview her about the project. But more importantly, people were sharing their own stories, their own hopes for how this technology could change their lives. Ray stopped by with takeout dinner, something that had become a comfortable habit between them. They sat together, eating noodles and planning next steps. The prototype had already evolved based on community feedback, becoming more intuitive, more responsive to real needs. "You know what's funny?" Anna said, putting down her chopsticks. "When I had my accident, I thought my world had become smaller. But looking at everything that's happened, maybe it just pushed me toward a bigger purpose." Ray nodded, understanding in his eyes. Sometimes the best innovations come from seeing the world differently. You taught me that. As they discussed their plans for user testing and community outreach, both felt the weight of what they'd achieved, not just a successful project, but a shift in how big companies could approach accessibility. They were proving that universal design wasn't just the right thing to do, it was the smart thing to do. The city lights began to twinkle below them, and Anna smiled, thinking about all the lives they were about to change. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come not from complicated technology, but from simple human understanding and the courage to see possibilities where others see problems. 6 months after the successful board meeting, the launch day for their adaptive technology line finally arrived. The convention center buzzed with energy as people from all walks of life gathered for the unveiling. News cameras lined the back wall, and the front rows were filled with members of the disability community who had helped test and refine the products. Anna sat backstage, smoothing her dress nervously. She'd written and rewritten her speech countless times, but now, peeking through the curtain at the waiting crowd, all her carefully prepared words seemed to fade away. Ray noticed her anxiety and wheeled a chair next to her. "Remember when we met in the rain?" he asked softly. "Just talk to them like you talked to me that day, from the heart." The audience fell silent as Anna rolled onto the stage. The spotlight felt warm on her face as she looked out at the sea of expectant faces. Taking a deep breath, she set aside her prepared speech. "A year ago, I got stuck on a broken ramp," she began. The simple honesty of her words captured everyone's attention. That moment could have been just another frustrating experience in a world that wasn't built for people like me. Instead, it became the beginning of something extraordinary. She shared stories from their testing phase. The elderly woman who cried when she could finally video chat with her grandchildren without help. The young artist with cerebral palsy who could now control his entire studio through voice commands. The busy father who could manage his home and work life more independently than ever before. Ray joined her on stage, and together they demonstrated their smart home system. The audience gasped as they showed how simple commands could adapt to different needs. Voice controls for some, gesture recognition for others, customizable interfaces for each unique situation. But it wasn't just about the technology. It was about the dignity of independence, the joy of doing simple things without asking for help. "This isn't just about making life easier," Anna explained, her voice strong with emotion. "It's about giving people the freedom to live their lives on their own terms." The presentation ended with a video montage of their beta testers using the products in their daily lives. The final clip showed a young girl with limited mobility reading a bedtime story to her little brother, controlling the room's environment all by herself. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. As the applause died down, something unexpected happened. People from the audience began standing up, sharing their own stories. A teacher talked about her student who could finally participate fully in class discussions. A doctor described how this technology could transform patient care. A business owner spoke about hiring more employees with disabilities, now that the workplace could be made more accessible. The press conference that followed was unlike any other tech launch. Instead of focusing on specifications and sales projections, reporters wanted to know about the people behind the products, the stories that drove the innovation. Anna and Ray found themselves sharing the spotlight with their beta testers, each one adding their voice to the narrative. Late that evening, after the crowds had gone and the cameras had turned off, Anna and Ray sat in the empty convention center. Their team had left behind a celebration cake, and they shared quiet slices while looking at the prototype displays. "You know what makes me happiest?" Anna said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Tomorrow, someone somewhere is going to wake up and do something they couldn't do today. And they won't make the news or give speeches. They'll just live their life a little more freely." Ray nodded, understanding perfectly. Success wasn't measured in the headlines or the pre-orders flooding in, but in those quiet moments of independence they were giving back to people. As they left the convention center, the city skyline glowed against the night sky. Their story had started with a chance encounter in the rain, but it had grown into something that would touch countless lives. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest moments of understanding and the courage to do something about it. 1 year after the product launch, Anna sat in her new office overlooking the city. The walls were lined with letters from people whose lives had been touched by their technology. She picked up one from a young boy who could now play video games with his friends despite his limited mobility. Next to it was a photo of an elderly couple who could live independently in their home of 50 years thanks to their smart system. The door opened, and Ray walked in with 2 cups of coffee, a habit they'd kept from their early planning days. He settled into the chair across from her desk, looking at the latest prototype their team was developing. It was smaller, sleeker, and more affordable than their first version. "Remember when we worried about the board approving just one project?" Anna laughed, taking her coffee. "Now we have an entire division dedicated to accessible technology, and 3 more companies have started their own accessibility initiatives." Ray smiled, remembering how far they'd come. What had started as one chance encounter had grown into something neither of them could have imagined. Their success had inspired other companies to see accessibility not as a charity project, but as an essential part of technology development. But their biggest achievement wasn't the technology itself. It was the foundation they'd created together. The Bridge the Gap Foundation provided grants to developers working on accessible technology and offered support to families who needed adaptive equipment. Every month, they hosted community meetings where people could share their needs and ideas directly with the development team. "I got another call from the publishing house today," Anna mentioned, pulling up an email on her screen. "They want to know when your chapter for the book will be ready." They were working on a book together, not just about their technology, but about changing the way companies think about accessibility. It was already being used in business schools as a case study in innovative thinking and social responsibility. That afternoon, they visited a local school where their technology had been installed. A young girl with cerebral palsy showed them how she used their system to participate in class discussions. Her teacher couldn't hold back tears as she described the difference it had made, not just in learning, but in the girl's confidence and social connections. "You know what's amazing?" Ray said as they left the school. "We thought we were just making technology more accessible, but we're actually helping people connect, helping them belong." Back at the office, they had their weekly video call with development teams from around the world. What had started in Seattle had spread globally, with each region adapting the technology to their specific needs and culture. A team in Japan showed their modifications for elderly care, while another group in Brazil demonstrated innovations for children with learning differences. Anna looked around the meeting room at the diverse faces on the screen. Engineers, designers, users, and advocates all working together. She remembered the lonely writer she'd been, thinking her accident had limited her world. Instead, it had opened doors she never knew existed. That evening, they celebrated a small but significant milestone: their 1,000th user. There was no fancy party, no press release. Instead, they gathered with their team in the office kitchen, sharing cake and stories about their favorite moments from the past year. "You changed my life, you know," Anna said quietly to Ray as the others chatted nearby. "Not just with the technology, but by showing me that one person really can make a difference." Ray shook his head, smiling. "We changed each other's lives. And together, we're changing the world, one small innovation at a time." As the sun set over Seattle, casting long shadows through the office windows, they both knew this wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where technology and humanity worked hand in hand to create a world where everyone belonged, where every life had value, and where the word impossible was just a challenge waiting to be overcome. Their journey had started with a broken ramp and a helping hand. It had grown into something that touched lives across the globe. But at its heart, it remained a simple truth that the greatest innovations come not from complex technology, but from understanding, compassion, and the courage to see the world through another's eyes.